Hello, friends. So happy to have you here with me today at Radical Joy. If you've been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time with me, well, I'm glad you're here. Each week, I'm here with you talking to myself about things that weigh on my mind and heart, hoping if you're dealing with something similar, we can adjust both our perspectives as you listen. Hey, if you're struggling with something that needs immediate attention, please know that help is available. Just dial 988 nationwide in the U.S. to reach the Mental Health and Suicide Crisis Hotline. All of us here at CLW Studios believe that mental health is a vital part of our well-being. The more people I meet and the more places I go, the more I realize how important it is to make people aware of the fact that there is no shame in enjoying the parts of your life that are incredible. It's time for some radical joy. And this week, the three fingers pointing back at me are for obeying the speed limit. Now, if you know me at all in real life off this podcast, you know that it is hilarious that I am encouraging obeying the speed limit, or maybe even encouraging mindfulness of the speed limit. I drive like a bat out of purgatory. I have no apologies for it. I get wildly impatient when people don't follow the rules of the road. I feel as though living in Las Vegas has made me a lesser driver simply from the fact that you must throw all rules, laws, guidelines, restrictions for traffic and engagement on the road completely out the window if you choose to survive in Sin City, way out here in Nevada's desert and God's armpit. Okay? You have to be so careful 24/7. And one of the things that I deplore about attempting to drive in this town is that everywhere that isn't freeway, almost everywhere is going to be 30, 35 miles per hour driving. These roads, they say that Las Vegas is laid out in a grid, and I know that to be true. I see these signs, and I was like, that street is on the other side of town. I just spent 20 minutes on the freeway, and I'm seeing this street again. I was like, yes, it's a grid, the whole thing, which means that for whatever reason, there are two-way intersections where two people have a stop sign and the other two do not, and there are huge walls built up on all of the corners so that trying to look around said wall so one does not get in a cataclysmic collision is often fruitless because people do not obey the speed limit. I personally think speed limits on the freeway are stupid. Though, however, in the year of our Lord 2024, whenever we can't seem to put our phones down, myself included, this is not a judgment on anybody that does not include me, promise. It's probably safer because I know there are a lot of people out there that are taking unnecessary risks, and I promise you, I am not innocent. I'm on my phone. I'm doing things. The phone comes through. It goes through the CarPlay. I try to reply to a text or whatever, and it's even more risky now that I should probably be wearing my readers whenever I'm doing something like that. But they're probably back home on the shelf with my Geritol and etc. Obeying the speed limit can apply to many different things. In traffic here, it can be very helpful. I think one of the most dangerous things about driving in Vegas is that very few people drive a consistent speed limit. You have few that are actually obeying the 30 to 35 miles per hour. Then you have those who are flying down the street at 60 in residential areas, in areas leading up to a stop sign, major intersections, etc. So timing it can be a little difficult, especially if your spatials aren't the best. You look to your left, you're about to pull into traffic, and it looks like you've got it in the clear because Meemaw's driving her Chrysler Reliant K car at 32 miles per hour, obeying the speed limit, making sure everyone behind her does the same thing. And then you've got Chad driving his purple Camaro, Corvette, Dodge Challenger, etc., with the glass packs and the crazy loud, and he's coming down the street screaming at 62. What do you do with that? Well, you got to allow for the least amount of damage and the most amount of expectation. I expect everyone to be driving like Chad, so I adjust my own actions so that I don't get hurt, so Chad doesn't get hurt, so little Meemaw and her Chrysler Reliant K car doesn't get hurt. Okay, Boulder, this has all been lovely. Thank you so much for this intro. Where is this leading today in regards to joy? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Because this entire situation makes me ready to rip throats out with my teeth in this town, or whip out that aluminum T-ball bat and just absolutely beat the living tar out of someone's car. I don't want to hurt anyone else. I absolutely want to get their attention, and vandalism is not right. It is illegal. It is not good. But if I told you that thought did not cross my mind, I would be telling you a story. Luckily, that bat has remained by the seat of Ellie, my Honda, the entire time she's been in there. Rock and roll. The thing that I mentioned about speed limit in this, obeying the speed limit, a lot of times we have something that we want to share with someone. I am a very avid sharer. I think that a lot of stuff in my life is really fun. I think a lot of things that I do, I operate on a shoestring or with limited time or resource. And whenever I do those kind of things and people say things to me like, gosh, must be nice. Wow, I wish I had that kind of money just lying around to do those kinds of things, or any number of things that are in themselves a compliment. However, there's a part of it that makes it feel almost like a little bit of a dig. Well, it must be great not to have anything going on in your life. Wow, it must be wonderful to have so much disposable income. All of my stuff is going towards groceries and mortgages and bills on cars and insurance. Yes, absolutely. I am not discounting any of those things. Please understand when I say that. A lot of my travel is done on credit card points that I have to use to pay my bills. Well, I don't have to, but I do, because you use the credit card, you pay off the credit card bill, you never pay interest, and you get those points so you can save up and go on that trip to Brazil, go to London, go to Paris, go to Cambodia, or wherever it is your little heart desires. If you play it right, you can do those things without significant or crippling expense to you or your family and loved ones. Now, saying that, I think a lot of people immediately start making excuses or throwing up defenses for why that doesn't apply specifically to them. And I get it. Everybody wants to feel special. Everybody wants to feel individual and unique and all of those things. I get it. I know, because I do. I want to feel special and just a little bit different in a way that puts me ahead of the competition, or just a little bit more deserving of attention or love. Didn't expect I was going to be just bearing my naked soul this morning, but here we are. When I say things like, you can do these types of things, we can do these types of things, even with restricted time, restricted resource, that sort of thing, being able to convince, even though it isn't necessarily something that I would want to think of as a topic that needed convincing, you have to obey the speed limit. Meaning, you have to take people at the speed with which they are comfortable driving that path. Now, I can say these kinds of things, and there are some people who will get very excited about the thing, and they'll walk with me for a minute and we'll talk about it, put loads of effort and time and all of these planning meetings and whatnot about making these kinds of things happen. And that trip will never come to fruition. We will talk about building one's self-confidence, going to the gym, losing that 10 pounds you want to lose. People will approach me about those kind of things. It's not that I want to judge anybody on how their body's doing. And we take the time. We walk through nutrition. We walk through a workout plan. We walk through all of these kind of things. And the only thing we converse about after the fact is why it didn't get done. I couldn't find the time, these sorts of things. And yes, I get it. Life gets in the way. It's extraordinarily busy, etc. I can also say with complete and utter confidence that time is something that you make for these kinds of things, because they make us better. Okay? And I think cerebrally, I think that forward thinking scholar brain that we all have up in our brain bucket gets that. I do. I really, really do, because we know that consistent Daily incremental steps move us consistently, incrementally, quickly toward a goal that we set. Wonderful. We all get that. There's also a lizard brain or a systems brain in there that is operating on perhaps a 20-year-old software system that remembers a time that we didn't have to diet and exercise to remain fit and attractive in our own mirrors and these kinds of things. And so that was way more fun. Yeah. Okay, let's just call it what it is. Like it was way more fun whenever you could just sort of like show up, do the things that you loved doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and all your clothes still fit, and you didn't feel kind of groggy at the end of the day, or you didn't worry about lethargy or any of those other kind of things. It was so awesome to just show up and play the ball, or lift the weight, or work all day, or play all day, or play all night, and you didn't have to worry about anything slowing you down, or any trouser fitting tighter, or any buttons blowing off. Okay. Now that we are not in our 20s, we have to put more effort into it, and it's frustrating. And it also, in certain ways, it just does not make sense. Though we have been warned of it, because there are a million jokes and a million marketing campaigns out there that say, you're not in your 20s anymore. Right. There's also a part of it that said, well, that could never happen to me. I'm going to stay watch over. I was a very chunky kid. I was very husky was the word we used often in my house. If we didn't want the young, angsty, chubby kid to burst into tears, or to snag a baked good from the kitchen and run back to his room and lock the door so they couldn't take it away from him. My hand to God, I'll never forget. My mother made some chocolate chip cookie bars. And I had gotten particularly heavy. I was a very heavy child, and it wasn't healthy. And my doctors had said that, and these other things. It wasn't just aesthetic, it was actually affecting my health. And we had to adjust our eating habits. I got back from the doctor that day. He was an hour away in Birmingham, and we lived in Nectar. And got back that day. And before my mother could catch me, I was like a toddler. I was like a puppy. Like, what is that in your mouth? Because before we could throw it all out, I grabbed this. It was the last one, or there were a few left, and I grabbed one and I ran back to my room and I locked the door. And I'll never forget my mother standing on the other side of the door, just banging on the door, telling me, just, no, baby, please, what are you doing? And I stood on the other side of that door, leaned against it. And at this point, I probably had 50, 60 pounds on her. So there's no way she's getting through the door, and ate the whole thing. And probably cried a little bit. I don't really remember that, but probably a little bit, because it was just such a desperately ridiculous situation. It was heartbreaking. It was terrible. Now, granted, that doesn't exactly match the story that I just told, because my beginning of this says you could eat and do whatever you wanted and still say thin and fit and da-da-da-da-da. I was not there. Okay. Flash forward a few decades, and I have got my fitness journey more to where I want it, and I feel great. And I lift for my mental health. I lift to look better naked. Like, there's a million reasons to do these kind of things, but there's still something in the back of my head that loves a little treat. Especially since TJ Maxx is right down the road, you can get all kind of nice little treats for next to nothing on your way to anywhere. Because you've been so good. Oh my goodness, look at this to-do list. Look at that. And whenever I overserve myself on the treats, here comes the tight trouser. Here comes the button blowing. I'm like, ugh, because I've exceeded my speed limit, right? I have not, I know what I need to do in order to maintain or achieve. I know it. I don't want to drive that slowly, because when I eat the treat, that endorphin rush, that happiness that is connected to this little treat that I made bad habits about a million years ago, is now that payoff is immediate. Okay. But it's going to take about a week and a half for those trousers to loosen their grip on my midsection. Right. And those buttons, I work real hard to blast them off. So I'm not going to say a word one about that. But the thing is, when I'm trying to speak to someone else about these kinds of things, they can hear it, they can understand it. We can all agree to something that, yes, this is the method, this is the reason, this is why, and this is how we get what we want. Yes, absolutely, 100%. That, yes. Then life gets in the way. Then bad habits get in the way. Then people who like to just step on your attempt for whatever reason come traipsing on down the road, just waiting to throw a banana peel in your path. I don't get it. I don't understand that. And I see it so often. I work in social media a lot. And so you see these things on the internet. You're like, wow, somebody took time out of their day to say something that ugly. And I continue to want to give them grace. I don't know what they're going through. I know a lot of folks out there are struggling right now. I know I have my days that I struggle. And so I want to make sure that I give them just a little bit of grace. I've actually asked a few strangers on the internet, it's like, "Are you okay? Do you need a hug? Like, I don't know if I'm anywhere close, but maybe that would help you. Because what you just said was wildly out of pocket, not necessarily apropos to what we're talking about, doesn't really serve the conversation, and it's just downright mean. Are you okay?" And I think that that is also something that we can deal with in regards to a speed limit. We talk about these things, and there's only so much you can absorb at a certain amount of time. Okay, because it's one of those things where we can know we want it. We can seek help to get it. That person can spend time and energy giving us the knowledge and the wisdom we need in order to achieve it. Why? Because we go to them because they've already done it. We seek mentorship from those who have already accomplished what it is we set out to do. And they do the thing, and sometimes you trade money for it. Sometimes you trade enormous amounts of money for it, right? I know personal trainers are very expensive. I've gone through several sessions of that. I was like, wow, okay, ouch. And I think that's it. I think sometimes our speed limit sort of has an interesting proportion with how much of the pain point there was or is to try to go that way. Meaning, if I spend a lot of money on this, the likelihood of me doing it all the way through and finishing the program is higher than if I received it for free. Also, how much I can, like, okay, along the lines of our speed limit theme, I can accept and accept and accept and accept. And then all of a sudden, I'm at a saturation point. I'm at a wall. I'm at a stop sign. And so far I've been doing pretty well. Like we're making constant progress. I'm not exceeding the speed limit, and I'm still keeping some good momentum going. And then for whatever reason, like I'm trying to just sort of breathe through it. I'm trying to just let it happen because a lot of times these are not things that come naturally, like getting back into your fitness regimen, like getting back into a reading or writing or artistic routine, right? It's one of those things where, okay, I know I want to do this. I know I want to do these things. And then I seek help. I get the mentorship. I pay the fee. And then there's only so fast that I can absorb the information. And the older I get, I think the slower I become on that uptake, just depending on what it is. And I think a lot of us are dealing with something like that. Great. How do we deal with that? How do we make a way to get this integration of information and skill back into what we're doing? Um, there are many methods out there that I've seen and attempted. I would recommend um, tiny amounts of progress daily, consistently. I think that honestly is the best thing that I have seen as far as that goes. Um, Working towards your goals, whatever those may be, I find that I often try to save up. Okay, for instance, today I'm leaving for Australia, meaning this episode is pre recorded. And my producer asked me to have 8 episodes done before I leave. And I've tried to be so consistent about it. I've made sure that, if I had one in me today, I did it. Needed to make sure that I got one out. Needed to make sure that that was in the tank, in the can. And this morning I wake and I'm meeting my friend for coffee in about 30 minutes. And it's like, okay, this morning I'm going to be sipping my first cup of coffee. She and I will be sharing another cup of coffee. Thank you very much. And I need to get this done because I have 2 more episodes to reach the 8 before I can leave for Down Under. Great. If I had saved all 8 of those to do today, how successful do you think that would have been? We're leaving here at noon. I would have had to wake at before dawn. And I think that the quality would have suffered tremendously. Now, granted, this how you feel about this, maybe this is making sense to you, maybe it's not. It's just one of those things where I was just noticing, I was like, this makes me so angry. I'm exploring why the speed limit here and how the mixed traffic people in this town send me into a rage. And whenever I get that emotional about something, it's usually best to stop and ask why. Why am I so upset about that? And it felt like it was one of those things where I had to apply it to my own life, because some things, whenever I go out there, I can absolutely blast through it. No problem. I'm rocking and rolling. There are others where I am just, oh my God, I'm on a scooter and one of the tires is flat, and like I'm wearing a cast, and there are no brakes. It's just I can only push it so far, but then I push it too fast and I can't slow it down. And the lack of consistency makes me a little crazy and often puts me in a less than favorable situation. Let's put it like that. Consistent steps, because whenever we try to save everything, you don't maintain. It doesn't stick. It doesn't stay. I know this because I have tried this more times than I care to count. We leave for the show today, and my trousers are exceptionally tight, and there may be little ladies along the tour that thoroughly enjoy that. Great. I do not, because there are some moves in that show, if you've seen it, you know, that are not safe for families if I try them in trousers that are exceedingly snug. Okay. I'm all out of black underpants. So if I split those britches, you're going to see some stripes, okay? Red, white, and blue, or just blue and white. Chances are real good. Now, a couple of those are silvers. Super. Got a couple of pairs of those that are like a gray blue that might cover it up. Probably not all the way. So in order to avoid embarrassment and or offending audiences, I would prefer to maintain a certain amount of clean eating and an extra amount of cardio, and probably just a little bit less lifting until I can get this into a place where, again, I'm not feeling squoze in the middle. And that's just the way that has to go. Now, there's a part of me knowing that this is coming up, and I still stop by TJ Maxx just like I did yesterday and get some of those little date and almond treats. It's because I love dates. Oh my God, I love them. Knowing full well I don't need to be eating that. I'm not even hungry. What I am is in need of that little treat, that little bump, because my feelings are also connected to eating. I know this about myself. This is not something that I'm sharing with you. It's not news to anyone, really. And it is in direct opposition to doing the show without splitting my pants. Though there's only so much that I can do. Like, I'm doing the daily cardio, I'm eating clean, I'm trying to avoid gluten and things like that, because I know that makes me feel a little bit and gives me a little extra fluff. So I work within the boundaries of the laws of the road, quote unquote, to my goal. And I just get something that's just loaded with sugar, but there's no gluten in it. Hey, calorie count's still there, but at least you're not bloated from the gluten. Isn't that interesting how we find a way around those kinds of things? Right? We know the laws of the road, and yet we exceed the speed limit. We know we're not supposed to be looking at our phones for everyone's safety, and yet, whoo boy, I love listening to TikTok, right? Watching is not always that useful. for me, especially driving. I don't watch. I keep it in the console between the seats. But there's a lot of information to be gained from that. Plus, I don't love a lot of the stuff on the radio. Not safe. Not great. I try to, again, make these justifications. Well, I'm not looking at it. I'm just listening to it. Okay. Which is better than trying to text someone using fingers and touchpad. Okay, I get that too. There's only so far we can go with that before we just have to sit down and acknowledge the fact that it would be better if we did these things the way we know we must in order to achieve the goal. I want to play guitar. You've got to practice. I hate to practice. I understand that. You've got to practice if you want to improve. I want a six pack. Great. You have to restrict certain dietary intake, and you've got to really crush it at the gym and make sure you hit abs 2 or 3 times a week. Ugh, I don't want to do that. I just want to pay my money to the gym and get my abs. I hear that. Hoo boy. However, you got to do the thing. And it's just so funny to me. I want to write a book. Great. Then you need to sit down and consistently write for 2 to 3 hours a day to make sure that those words get on the page, because you're not going to love everything you write. You're going to need to get it out. Then you're going to need to edit it. You're going to need to refine it. You're going to need to do the things. Yeah, but I just want the book to be done. I understand that. There is no A to Z. You've got a B to Y to get through. And that information is hard to take, because we've been conditioned, especially this day and age, that we want it right now. And it never helps that we see everything on the socials that show us the outcome. And rarely does it show us the rigor that went into getting it done. Right? And so this intake of information is very gradual for some, because we want it right now. And we don't want to change anything to do it. And it always goes back to that thing, the definition of insanity is continuing to do the same thing, expecting change. It's like, well, if I want to change something, I'm going to have to do something differently, because one doesn't come out of nowhere with that sort of thing. You really got to get behind it and do something differently. Yes. And that will stay for a while. And then we have to give grace to the fact that we're gonna backslide a little bit. Healing isn't linear. Improvement isn't linear. All of these things take a little bit of work and effort, and then we gotta rest. You don't go to the gym and pick up heavy things consistently for the hour that you're there. You rest in between sets. And you can't go to the gym and look at your phone all day and expect all of that effort to just osmose into your muscles so that you get the fitness that you're expecting from your time in the gym. It continues to elude me specifically that that's the way it goes. And the fun part is too, I go to the gym and I really, really crush it. And then I come home and there's part of me, and it's some of it's psychosomatic and some of it is actually true, I think, because if I go for a couple of days, I just feel kind of like blah. I go to the gym, I crush it. I get home, and of course, we do the inventory in the mirror before jumping in the shower. You're like, I can see what happened. That pump is for real, and that pump is not just to the gym. Productivity feels amazing, right? Ticking serious things off that list feels really, really great. Knowing these kinds of things, we continue to take in the information, we continue to walk down the path, and I'm always super careful about what it is that I need to do in order to help others with this information. They come to me, they ask these kind of things, as I'm sure there are people in your life who come to you to help. How did you get this done? How did you do this? And the first thing that starts happening is they start trying to reinvent the wheel when that wheel is doing just fine on the car as is. Right? I am guilty of that as well. I do. Oh, that I don't like the sound of that. I want to try my own method. All right. Do. I'm telling you it's not going to work because I've already been through that. Maybe you're different. Maybe this time it'll be different. People assimilate this information. They take it to heart in different speeds and in different amounts and in different levels of seriousness. I say that because I know I do. And I want to say that if you're on the giving end of that expertise, remember that folks take in that information in different levels, speeds, and amounts. Try to give them a little grace. I get impatient. This is me speaking to me more than I am to anybody else. Like, yeah. And also, whenever it's very, very clear that this is not going anywhere, walk away. They've got all the information they need. Let them have it. And it's hard because people want to complain like, well, this ain't working. It's not working because you're not doing it. Okay. And you can tell me all day that you are, and I can absolutely pump you up because, man, I love to hype folks up. I also want to make sure folks know that, if you're sitting around doing things that are directly counterintuitive and counterproductive to your goal, don't be surprised when you don't reach it as quickly as you'd hoped. I really enjoy the time we get to spend together, friends. I don't know who this is talking to today. It just felt like it was the right thing to talk about this morning because I've had a lot of trouble trying to figure these things out by knowing what I need to do and having trouble completing it. Going to people who have done the thing, getting the information, step by step, outline, blueprint, all these kinds of things, and am having a hard time with the speed at which I am consuming and using this information productively. So hopefully, in this half hour of meander, in a good way, I feel great about it. I hope that this is helpful to somebody else. It's been great for me. I'm hoping that whenever I get down to putting pen to paper, rubber to road, and putting that barbell in the air, that it is going to be something that I can use and remember, oh, we talked about this. If this is your first episode of Radical Joy, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. If this is not your first episode, welcome back. It's always so wonderful to have our repeat listeners. We're so happy that you're here. If you're the kind of person who loves to leave a review, please do so. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform where you're listening. Send us a screenshot and we'll send you some swag. We'll send you a sticker to put on a water bottle, a laptop, a journal. We love a journal. Any of those kind of things will do really well with my smiling face on it. As always, friends, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for about half an hour of Radical Joy. As always, never forget, we love y'all. Thank you for taking time to share a moment of joy and hope with me. We're so grateful you're here. If this is your first time, take a moment to check out our archive. See if there's something else in there that fires you up, rekindles the joy in you. Hey, spread the word if you got something out of being with us today. We welcome your thoughts and suggestions. Now, I rarely run out of things to talk about, but if there's something I haven't covered that's on your mind or heart, I want to hear from you. To learn more about me and CLW Studios, follow the links in the show notes. Hey, don't forget, when you leave Radical Joy a review, be sure to send us a screenshot. We'll send you some kick-ass swag to show our gratitude. I am not a therapist or a medical professional. If you're experiencing a mental health emergency, please call 988 to reach the National Crisis Lifeline. This content and other content produced by CLW Studios and affiliated partners is not therapy, and nothing in this content indicates a therapeutic relationship. Any opinions of guests on this podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of James or CLW Studios. Please consult with your therapist or seek one in your area if you're experiencing mental health symptoms. Everything in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Have a great one, and we will see you next week for another dose of Radical Joy. Love y'all.